Hello, folks, to another episode of Will Review. I'm your host, Will D. And today we're going to start off with a little bit of sports talk. I'm going to skip the usual sports and just talk real quick about tennis, right quick. Congratulations to Naomi Osaka. She won the U.S. Open. I think the best part about it for me is that she didn't have to face Serena Williams, so we got to see her every face in the final. It's just great to see someone so young, just like really dominating the sport with her third like major grand tournament. So congrats to her. Shout out to Blasians everywhere. Before we left last time, we were talking about WWE Payback, so that's part of why we're skipping everything else. There was a pay-per-view. We didn't get a chance to talk about it last week, so we're going to talk about it now. WWE has been doing a couple of things, some expected, some unexpected. I think the biggest thing at Payback was the return of Roman Reigns, coming in with Paul Heyman a few nights before the actual event, but that night he pulled a real Brock Lesnar-esque move and comes into the match super late just to take down Bray Wyatt and Strowman. I thought that was I thought it was a little bit over the top. I mean, we kind of saw it coming all night, so it was a bit like, oh, this is exactly what we expected. But we actually had a solid match from the two big men. Something I was a little surprised about. Normally, both of them are mildly disappointing in the ring because they're very simple and basic. This was not exactly the, oh my God, holy crap kind of a match, but it did feature a couple of highlights, including a ring destructive superplex, and then Roman comes in and just kind of takes the title like we expected him to. I think it's a great move for WWE. Nothing against Braun Strowman. And honestly, after watching the behind-the-scenes stuff on the WWE Network, I kind of grew more of an appreciation for him as a wrestler. But the fact of the matter is, he's not the best on the mic. They haven't fully developed his character. He definitely was an interim champ because, honestly, it wasn't his time yet. He had a role at one point. I thought that they should have given him the title. He lost it, and as time has moved on, it wasn't the perfect timing for him, but he was brave enough, bold enough, and strong enough to step up to the plate. So I give him his dues for doing that. He had a solid little reign. Just the back and forth with the Wyatt family, I think, was just a bit too out of nowhere. And I would have loved if they let him get to the title in some sort of really had to fight his way up for it, not just being the guy to take it away from Goldberg. So hopefully, maybe now with this drama of Roman Reigns, they could build up something for him and maybe give it back. But Reigns never lost the title, so him getting it back, I think, is the right move. Whether or not you like Roman Reigns, he's a solid champ. He's had the championship before on multiple occasions. He's been very entertaining in his stories, whether or not he was the champion. And I think it's a good move for WWE. But other than that night, we had Sasha Banks lose all of her titles. And, while Bayley finally turns her back on her, and instead of Sasha being the one to betray Bayley, Bayley betrays Sasha, and it looks like it's a storyline that's going to carry over. Hopefully, this leads to Sasha being able to win the championship from Bayley and hold it for at least 2 pay-per-views instead of one night. I would love that. I'm really tired of seeing Bayley as champion. Period. We in that particular match, we see Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax become tag team champions. I think it's a really good move for WWE. Nia and Shayna have both kind of faded into the spotlight. Nia Jax was a dominant wrestler who was doing her thing. I know there's a couple behind the scenes issues with Nia, but all in all, you allowed her to be the face of your company, even if it's for 24 hours. To put her so far in the backseat doesn't make any sense. So that, now that you're giving her a chance, an opportunity to actually hold some gold, I think is good, because they literally gave her the championship and she lost it the very next night to start the reign of a nobody as far as I'm concerned. Sure, she was a UFC champ, but she just no business in WWE, and loses to her the very next day. Why is it that the people who are minority descent becoming women's champion can't hold the title for more than 24 hours? Really? And before someone goes, well, Bayley's Mexican, really? Look at her. That's all I'm gonna say. You have to literally Google the fact that Bayley is Hispanic to think and see and wonder and know that she's Hispanic. Yeah! I mean, granted, there's been a huge change in WWE where, people of color have actually been able to win titles. But I wouldn't put Bayley in that category. She's their star white girl as far as I'm concerned. And again, she's not even all Mexican, But besides that whole matchup, Big E won that night. He beat Sheamus. I think these are two stars who are, pretty much taking a back seat in WWE, due to injury, due to tag team reigns, just stuff like that. They're both great solo wrestlers, and I think it's a good matchup. I don't think it was pay-per-view worthy, but considering the state of wrestling right now, you work with what you got. We also have Matt Riddle fight King Corbin. Matt Riddle wins. King Corbin continues to try and, get his revenge, yada, yada. It's a really boring storyline, but they don't have enough of a roster to do anything else but. We had Bobby Lashley win the U.S. Championship. This is probably the only match that made, to me, a lot of sense from beginning to end, because the back and forth of Apollo Crews and this group that Lashley's a part of has always ended up with Lashley beating Crews. So, if we're going to continue this Crews war, he needs to have that one person in the group that he's yet to really beat. And I mean, really beat. He's never really beat Lashley. I think he has one roll-up pin victory over Lashley, and, he ran out the ring or something. That needs to be the culmination where, Crews beats Lashley. That's the end of their rivalry after they go through a, second chance match. And then Crews is able to move on. And even then, if he loses the title, at least we wrap up this little storyline. I don't know why we have all the black people fighting each other. Just putting that there. And the match that started off everything and also made me wonder if this was going to be worth my time as a pay-per-view were the Riot Squad versus the Iconics. This match wasn't a bad match. It just wasn't one that I really even wanted to see. And by the end of it, there was a purpose at least, and no longer are we supposed to see the Iconics as a tag team. I think this is a good move. I mean, part of the issue with this tag team is that when they're a tag team, they're fun. They're funny on the mics. They're not the best in the ring, but them not being the best in the ring leads to why they cheat, and it leads to a lot of these fun matches. But there have been times where one's out because of surgery or because of injury, and you don't see the other one at all. This allows them to develop a solo career, and maybe later they'll come back together as a tag team. But I think this is good in case somebody gets injured or whatever, that we still get to see Peyton Royce, or her partner in ring. So, I get it, WWE, let's do something with it, because the Riot Squad isn't going to necessarily be the squad all the time, and we've had them as individual wrestlers. Let's do the same for the Iconics. On that note, I'm going to give Payback a score of 3 out of 5. It wasn't the most entertaining pay-per-view, but there was a lot of story driving done in this pay-per-view, and it was a solid, watch. You don't feel like you wasted your, 2.5 hours watching it, all right? We're going to go to our first commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some things happening in the news. Charles, if you could, take us to our first break.
Hi, I'm Charles Alomont, and I want to thank you for watching the LDM Network. For more information on this show or any other show, please go to www.ldmnetwork.net. Again, that's www.ldmnetwork.net. And now, let's get back to our show.
As mighty armies clash in a struggle for total domination, the scales can be tipped by one man who has the courage to confront his fate and make a choice that will decide the fate of the world.
Guys put a lot of smoke in today. Wow. But anyway, we expecting a real superhero? I don't think so. The real life superheroes are the ones that are helping out in their community today. And the LDM show will be there to bring you the events and stories to life. Do you know a real superhero? Let us know. But for now, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Also visit our websites for photos, videos, and updates. But until the meantime, hey, I gotta be out of here.
So we're back. And a couple of things have been happening in the news. I want to talk about some stuff happening here in the city. So, first, we had the malls start to reopen, malls and casinos in New York. Cuomo started opening things up. And I haven't heard about a major spike going on. So this is a good sign, city. We have people going out shopping, getting too close to each other like they have been, and nobody's fudging numbers. This is positive. I don't know whether this is because more people have antibodies, whether this mass nonsense is working, maybe because all the people who were gonna, pass away have started to pass away, and, we've gotten through the flood. Whatever the reason may be, it's positive because winter is coming, right? There's not gonna be a lot of ability to walk around and enjoy the weather. So we need more indoor entertainment to open up. People aren't going to want to sit at home because they didn't want to sit at home now. They're going to want to go out and shop. They're going to go out to restaurants. Outdoor dining won't work. We're talking about the restaurant industry not being able to feed people. Like, this is going to be big. So we need to see stuff opening. We need to see stuff happening now. So this way, by the time we get to the end of October and we know the real chill hits ending of October, beginning of November, that the city is going to be good going into things. And I think around that same time, we're also supposed to be getting our second checks, and our vaccines are supposed to be coming in for emergency personnel first. So just something to consider. This is a good sign, folks. I'm very happy about this. Also here locally, the city has elected to have a black man as the new head of SVU for the New York City Police Department, which I think will be very interesting to see if they decide to do the actual change as far as the casting of the Law and Order TV series. So I want to see if they do that, because then I might actually watch again just to see how long they keep it up. But I just, something that's actually, it's a real thing. SVU is a real unit in the NYPD, and so now they're having a minority officer run stuff. Let's see how that works out. In the city, we know that schools will be opening the 21st to actually have students inside. Different schools will be having different rules as, how frequently students will have to actually come into class per week. We're seeing different things happen in the private schools as opposed to the public schools. But we do know that 2/3 of students have elected to actually take physical courses in school. I don't know if part of that has to deal with, parental capability to supervise, since jobs will also be opening back up right now. I don't know how smart of a thing this is. If we're talking about stuff that's going to prove whether or not the city will be functional for winter, this right here is the real test. If kids aren't spreading anything more than the usual, cold, lice, and other random germs that probably end up making us strong, then we should be good. So let's hope that these students going back on the 21st do not get the rest of us sick. As well as the fact that there have been some schools saying that despite the city allowing stuff to open by the 21st, they're not going to be opening until January. Success Academy is probably the largest charter school network here in New York. They're not opening any doors until after winter break in December. So I don't know why more schools didn't decide to take this into effect. I thought this might be the smart move. You get into flu season. We should have the vaccines of sorts by then. I know teachers were teaching at the end of last year cybernetically. It's not like they're going to lose out on salary. This is probably one more reason as to why you want your kid to go to charter school. I'm just going to put that out there. If they're not in a specialized program, they're taking their chances with the 21st. But we'll see. I mean, the be-all, end-all is we need to see how these numbers hit anyway. So I'd rather it happen now in the September where there's still a little bit of warm, and we figure out the rest of it in November, December. But some stuff there happening. Now, outside of the city, we have a couple different major things going on. So some of it's some fun stuff, like Mountain Dew is going to be releasing a watermelon flavor. Now, someone was trying to make a black joke about it, but frankly, I like watermelons. So, I mean, let's give it a shot, right? I don't see why not. If Mountain Dew is going to have a watermelon flavor, let's see how good it is. And you know how this sort of thing works. If it does well, they'll keep it permanently. That's just how that works. as well as David Klein is one of the guys to coin the term jelly bean. He owns a couple different factories, and he's planning on retiring. So he's holding a competition. I think it costs like $45 to enter, but I put the information up on the Will's Review page. And if you win his contest and do his Charlie and the Chocolate Factory thing, he will not only give you ownership of one of his factories, but also give you the ability to learn how to run the business. So he's not just going to throw you in there with the sharks. He's actually going to teach you how to run a successful jelly bean company and then give you the company to actually manage. I think this is actually really dope. I love this idea. If I had the time to go around and search for stuff all around the freaking state, city, or whatever, I would do this. But I've been working since COVID, so I don't have that free time. I wish I knew about this when I had staycation. But for anyone else who has the time, you're not working right now, this may be better than going back to your old job. So look it up. I put the information on the Will's Review page earlier this week. Scroll down, click the button, and you will find out how to enter into your Jelly Bean Factory contest. Another thing that was pretty interesting going on is that Christian crowdfunding is trying to build money in support of the Kenosha shooter. Now, I don't know how anyone should feel about this. I mean, generally, right? This man has killed people. And yet Christians feel that they need to support him financially in his defense. Now, I don't know what the official stance should be on this because, Christians are supposed to help people in need. But I thought, didn't one of the commandments say thou shalt not kill? Like, aren't they supposed to condemn this man for doing that? I don't know. Maybe it's me. I don't know. I didn't read the entire Bible, but there's something about this just doesn't sit well with me. But then again, as some might say, it could be the Christian thing to do. So, I don't know. You weigh in. Send me your thoughts. I posted up an article about this as well on the Will's Review page, so go take a look. I want to see your comments. What do you have to say about this? How do you feel about this? I don't know. This just seems really weird to me. This doesn't fit, right? You would think someone who has committed murder wouldn't have a religious backing behind him. I mean, I know maybe earlier that day he did some community service, but I've never known 6 hours of community service equaling the taking of 2 lives. Maybe it's just me. Maybe my math is wrong. Maybe this math ain't so quick. We also have the fact that the CDC has done 2 things. So, the CDC has said that no one can be evicted until the end of December. Something that you would figure Congress would say, but no, the CDC said that it's not healthy enough to send people out of their homes with nowhere else to go until December. Okay. All right, yeah, I think Corona is a good excuse as to why people shouldn't lose their homes. I just don't know why Congress didn't feel the same way. They've been delaying it, but they never gave a whole, you can't do this. They just kind of there's going to be some penalties if you do. Doesn't make sense. The other side of it is that they claim that there's a corona vaccine and that it'll be ready around election time, and the first people to get it will be emergency responders, as well as some people in at-risk areas. Now, this sounds good, but I think a lot of people who work in the medical field would agree with me. We have a new vaccine that may or may not work, but it looks like it might. And we've done some trials on it. And I think the first people that we should mass produce this and test this on are the first responders. Ideally, it's to make sure that we can make sure that they're protected as they deal with corona cases. And I get that. But considering that this is the first time we're getting something, why don't we test this on the politicians they're so sure this works? Give it to them first, since they have to make the policies, right? In case anything goes wrong, all the people who are useless are taken out first anyway. Not everyone who's supposed to be around to save everyone if this doesn't work. It's stupid. You want to even say give it to the at-risk areas, and that's the other part that makes me question it. The last time the government wanted to give stuff like that to people at risk, right, which really means poor and minority communities, it's not normally the best stuff. So you want to give the stuff that you're going to give to them, to the same people who are supposed to save them, doesn't It doesn't add up to me. Who are they trying to wipe out? Are they trying to make sure that they don't have to pay us for making us work through Corona? Pay me for my time, government. But we'll see. And at the same time, El Presidente has said that he doesn't want to work with the World Health Organization in making sure that Corona vaccine will be fairly distributed amongst the world. Whatever he gets his hands on, he's keeping for himself. And you know what? This is one of the few times I'm actually going to agree with Trump. The U.S. has been blown up for having so many more cases than everyone else. Why would we worry about fairly trading this vaccine with other people? I mean, it would be safer for the rest of the world if we got more of it to give to all of our exponential cases, right? We've had more deaths. We've had more, infected. I think maybe India is catching up with us now. This kind of a situation. I can't be mad at him. We do some of the biggest trades around the world. We do a lot of traveling around the world. We have a lot of people try and come and live in this country. I think it just makes more sense for the U.S. and other hotspots, nations with bigger numbers, not just the U.S., but all nations with bigger numbers, to just get more of it. Screw fair distribution. Let's give this to the way that we need it. The higher populated areas, the more traveled areas, and the nations that have had more cases. I think it makes sense. Why are we going to give stuff to New Zealand when they've beaten Corona? I mean, I love New Zealand, but it just doesn't add up. Like, they can get whatever's left. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm a little too heartless, cold. I don't know. It makes sense. It just makes sense. And that's very rare to say when you're talking about anything that comes out of Trump's mouth. But I would have to agree. Now, outside of the news and business and stuff, there's some stuff happening in media. So, one, Cobra Kai has officially, been said that season 3 will come out on Netflix. And although there's no clear date, they're saying it will be next year. So we do have to get through the rest of 2020 wondering what happens after he threw his phone away at the beach. This sounds like a bad soap opera ending, doesn't it? But I'm excited to see it. As I said before, Cobra Kai was a really good, nice surprise. And if you are in such a rush to watch the rest of it, it's on YouTube, bruv. Just go get YouTube Red if you feel like it's worth it. There are a couple of series that popped up on YouTube Red that definitely caught my eye, but I don't know if there's enough to make me want to subscribe. I'm sorry, YouTube, but you need some heavy hitters, not some like, oh, I know some of these, internet celebrities. Perhaps they can act. Yeah, I'm not really willing to pay you for perhaps they can act, considering I still get ads on my music videos. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Take away my ads, maybe I'll pay for your subscriptions. We'll talk about it. But my ads first. Also, John Boyega's been making waves. I mean, he's been very outspoken. We were talking about it before, where he was talking about how, Hollywood has been treating black people, and Black Hollywood backed him, saying, if they want to cut you off, we'll give you work. So after he got that guaranteed of work, he's been going ham, and he called out Star Wars on their BS about how they treated people of color in the rest of the series, how they downplayed even his character. And you know what? He's right. To this day, you cannot tell me that one of the only good points to that, what is this? I guess that's the 7th movie, right? The one where they pretty much redid A New Hope all the way through. The only good points to that movie for me was when Johnny Boyega's character was like, hey, I can be a Jedi too. And he has the lightsaber and he does his thing and he's keeping up with Kylo Ren for a little bit. How is it you show me this moment in the first movie and we never get back to the fact that Homeboy should be on his Jedi training? Nah, instead we make him some sort of womanizer and he's just bagging chicks left and right. And that becomes the gist of his story, like saving these chicks that he's kind of sort of messing with. That's some bull. He should have been there at the with Rey and them and like kicking butt against the Sith Lord. Maybe not against the Sith Lord, but he should have sent them on their way and like, I'll hold these guys back. And then, maybe I'm that much of a geek, but I was really hoping they would get back to him being a Jedi at some point. So him calling them out in their BS and how like a lot of the other characters didn't really have much of a story in this and the third. I mean, he's not wrong, but again, Star Wars is usually about the main characters. He was one of those side characters that was meant to be like a part of it. Like he was Chewie, bro. So, we saw you in every movie. You got to do your thing. I get it. They messed with your character. Don't get me wrong. But we really don't need everybody else. Like, we don't need the whole story about the Ewoks. We don't need that. And that's what some of those other characters were. They were part of Luke's flight team on that first mission to get rid of the Death Star. And when they all started dying, you're like, oh, that's unfortunate, but I don't really care. That's who they were. So the fact they didn't get roles like that, like, I understand, but he's not wrong. They really didn't give people of color much to do in that series. It's Star Wars, bro. If you're not the main, you're not really relevant. I mean, if anything, I say Star Wars franchise really has to, like, ride out this Mandalorian wave. Mandalorian should also be coming out with season 2 later on this year, so keep your eye out. I think it's going to be ending of October, early November, so definitely keep your eye out. The Boys is also on Amazon Prime right now. They're going out with episodes every Friday. I gotta admit, I wasn't a huge fan of season 1, but I really like season 2 right now. So, although I would tell you before, don't really mess with it, I would say give it a shot now, because season 2 is worthwhile. We're only 4 episodes in. I think The Boys is about a 10-episode season, so there's a ways to go, and I'm excited for where the rest of the episodes are going to go. Then we have a couple of interesting things. The fact that GameStop hasn't been doing well. A lot of digital content is already built into systems where you don't have to go to the store to buy it. So GameStop's going to be trying to get business by offering payment plans for the Gen 5 systems coming out, which is the new Xbox and the PS5, right? I think this is a brilliant idea. They're talking about something about, like, $35 a month, which, you're then paying this off for 2 years. So this way, they're getting this money continuously, probably keeping their business open for another 2-3 years, because they are closing stores as well. But I think this is great for people because a lot of people couldn't afford the new systems. And people the internet is already full of trolls. So they're trolling people who can't pay for the system. We already get those usual, get you a sugar mama, get you a sugar daddy, get them to buy you your PS5, right? But the fact of the matter is, ain't nobody spending $600 on these systems like that. So I'm going to be one of those people saying, if you really want this, you got to go to GameStop and you got to sign up for a payment plan. And they're going to be offering them at the ending of October and the beginning of November. A lot of stuff is happening as soon as Halloween hits. So really, you got to keep your eyes out. You got to be attentive. You're going to be getting this money from the government. You're supposed to be getting these vaccines from the government. You're going to be getting your down payment on your PS5s. It's about to be lit come Halloween. Like, real talk. I don't know what the government's been waiting for, but they were like, this corona stuff should be over by then. So they're allowing us to do everything. They're doing everything at that point in time. I now am really excited for Halloween, and it has nothing to deal with candy corn. And I really do like candy corn. I'm the only person in this world who seems to like candy corn like that. But I mess with it heavy. So just something there for everybody to kind of get their thing on. And last but not least, as far as this goes, we are sad to say this, but Venture Bros is finally canceled. All right. Venture's Brother was a pretty entertaining show. It felt like a Scooby-Doo ripoff mixed with a couple of other things. And it's been known, like a lot of Adult Swim shows, to have really long hiatuses. The fact of the matter is, it was recently announced that in the production of season 8, that Cartoon Network finally gave up on it. After 2 years, they're like, you know what? Nah, you're done. And so they found out a little while ago. They made an official statement earlier this week. So no more Venture Brothers. There are 7 seasons that you can go back and watch. Honestly, I thought it was a pretty solid show, but again, they're known for these really long hiatuses. And unlike, Rick and Morty, the fandom just isn't as big. A lot of people slept on this series, even though it was a good series, and they didn't have the momentum to really rely on these long hiatuses. So, sorry to them. I'm sure we're going to see future stuff from that studios and from those guys. But, if you're a Venture Bros fan, it's the end of a long, long road. On that note, we're going to go to our second commercial break. And when we come back, our fans of the week and some movies we should check out.
And here are the R&B nominees of the 4th LDM Music Awards. Fabian and TAB with Joyride.
All I wanna do is fall in love with you, baby. You can take me on a joyride. I just wanna fall. We can keep it going all night. I just wanna fall in love with you.
Daryl Perry with Inside of Your Love.
Show me the ways of your ecstasy. I wanna go deeper inside of your love. In my arms you lay, girl, if it's okay, I wanna go deeper.
Vanity and Fabian with Baby I.
Baby, I've been thinking of you all day. Wait.
Sandor with Doctor. The Foes was the R&B nominees of the 4th LDM Music. And here are the hip-hop nominees of the 4th LDM Music Awards. Small Hands with Together.
Let's gear up, let's hold hands, let's play outside together. Let's cheer up, don't hold back. I say we cry together.
Little Deuces with Briefing.
Snakes trying to sneak up, so I'm always on high alert. Now rappers trying to come up on the list. Everybody sending shots trying to get they diss. But you got a ghostwriter, so you bet not miss. I ain't even in the beef, I'm just trying to get my to-go diss. Simply screaming RP, Echo Tommy.
Pop the Brown Hornet with Straighten It Out.
Little kids scared to come outside. Bullets flying everywhere, no place to run and hide. If it's not a homicide, it's a suicide. In the concrete jungle, you're blessed to make it out alive. Got a bad epidemic, bodies just dropping. Another overdose due to pill popping. Do black
Sin, Mr. Flavor, and Devil Advocates with War.
They want war with them. The chances of them winning is gonna be slim. They want war with you. Forgive them for what they say and not what they do. They want.
These were the hip-hop nominees of the 2020 LDM Music Awards.
So, Charles, you have our fans of the week ready to go? All right. So, this week from the Facebook side, we have familiar face in Oscar de la Fuente. He's been a consistent top fan for quite some time, so shout out to him and thank you for following almost religiously. Also, though, a new face in Kathy Farson. Who I didn't even know when she became a fan of the page, but definitely was showing love this week, so shout out to her. We also have Melissa Williams from last week, who's been a recent follower, very active, so thank you. And Jason Grant, who is also a relatively new follower and was showing a lot of love, so thank you. On the Instagram side, though, a lot of my favorite people are top fans this time around. So first we have That Jen Nomster, who has lately been showing she is quite the meme queen. So I'm very happy to see that. She got jokes for days if you follow her page. Also my boy Spacey GX, shout out to you for showing love this week. I know it's been a rough time. Sorry for your loss, but you know I'm there for you, bro. So hit me up anytime. We got my boy Cadillac Gorilla, probably one of the few meme kings who inspires even me. This dude is on it all day, every day. So Cat Daddy, shout out to you. And Minnie Monroe, who is my homegirl from high school. Happy belated for on air. I said it to her on her birthday, but you know I didn't get a chance to say it on camera. So shout out to you, and thanks for being a top follower. But the post for this week, that is the picture of the week, really reminded me just how old I am. You know, we laugh and joke about it, but then eventually there's that moment when you realize you're old. And I'm not even 30 yet, and yet this made me feel like I'm 60. So if you are born before, what is that, September 4th, 1998 or something like that, like, you are older than Google. And I didn't realize like just how young Google was, because most of my life Google's been a thing, but I'm older than something that is officially like an English term. Like we don't even say you look up something. We're like, did you Google it? Like it is a term. I'm older than it. Like I'm older than a saying. I'm older than. This is really like one of those whoa moments. I think what's even worse than that is that my younger cousin, who's like my baby bro, is older than Google, and that just really made me feel old. Like I'm older than him by a lot. So I'm like, I'm really older than Google. This is something. And at the same time, it's kind of cool to see just how far we've come in like 20 some odd years as far as like technology and advancement. Like I know someone who was born in the 70s and really like lived through the 80s to now can really understand like how crazy the world has been, let alone if you're older, right? You went from like the black and white TV and 3 networks to the freaking internet, what it is today, and TikTok, and now you're like, how do we come from this amazing invention to a bunch of these idiots publicizing themselves? But, that's why I went with the 70s. They're a little less mad about it. But it's just, I'm older than Google. That blows mine. Like, this is crazy. Google's only 22. Like, Google just got to drink last year. This is not fair. But let's move on. We're going to talk about some movies and some series that you should definitely watch. And although I would like to do this from what to skip to whatever, I have to start off with one movie in particular because the internet has been abuzz. A bunch of my friends who are parents have been posting about it. I've seen a bunch of other memes and such. I normally ignore the memes, but when I see it be the people that I know, I had to give it a shot. So the first movie we're going to talk about is Cuties, right? And before we get to anything about this, in the first 2 seconds of hitting the play button on this movie, it's from France. Automatically, everybody talking crap about this movie, shut up. France is known for having very provocative films about normally people of color and youth in their communities in France. This is one of the more tamer movies that I've stumbled across being a French film. They've had a lot of movies, especially when it comes about the Africans living in France, and how their youth is very destructive to themselves. They try and grow up too soon. And this movie didn't feature any sex. This movie doesn't feature a lot of graphic stuff that happens in a lot of these other films I've accidentally stumbled across. You see a movie with an interesting name, you click on it and you're like, oh, well, does it have English dubs? I'll watch it. And you see this stuff. I mean, they had some stuff from the 90s and early 2000s that was a little bit like, how am I going to sit through this? This movie did not bother me. It really didn't. This was pretty tame, especially for a French film. So automatically, everything you're seeing on the internet, disregard it. Everyone's complaining about the fact that this is over-sexualizing little kids, this, that, and the third. If you read the premise of the movie, it says that this girl is being, kind of taken away from where she's from and is being led astray because of this, dance group and what they're about. The whole story is about a little girl who, I would assume she's Muslim from most of the stuff going on. They never really exactly say it, but it's assumed. She's an African girl who is from a very traditionalist family. Her mother is dealing with the fact that her husband is taking on a second wife and is breaking her down. And this little girl's watching this, and it's causing her to rebel because she's kind of losing faith in everything she's known. She meets these popular kids who are definitely acting like they're like the older teenagers, and she wants to be more like them because they have this independence and this sense of self that she doesn't see in her mother. And it leads her to go about this route, which leads her to this very provocative dancing and acting way too grown. And she loses track of who she is and everything about her that's supposed to root her in herself. But in the end, right, after this very over-dramatized, sexualized dancing, she breaks down and kind of realizes that this isn't her. Like, this can't be who she is. And she tries to, she kind of starts to beg for forgiveness because she realizes how far astray she was. This movie is talking about everything that people are complaining about. It's like, how could they talk about this, about little girls, this, and then the whole movie is literally how this little girl has to realize this, that that's not the way for her, that that's not where she should be going, that they shouldn't be sending children in this route. So the scenes that people are mad about are somewhat necessary in the storytelling to get the message across that you're trying to cause, people to get upset about. And again, this is a French film. The French are known for pushing limits. People don't like their movies sometimes because it touches too close to home, or it's a little too graphic or a little too much, because they're willing to go there. A lot of European countries are willing to go there. The way that they view sex isn't the same way that we do. You know, the Protestants that came here with all the negativity weren't the ones that stayed over there. You know what I'm saying? So for them, they don't show as much violence to the degree that Americans do. We can go into all the blood and gore. They don't touch that the same way. When it comes to sex, they go where we can't push it. It's the reason why people prefer the UK skins to the American one. It's just a cultural difference. And in all honesty, it's preaching the same message. So people, I'm not going to tell you that you should watch this with your children. It's definitely not child friendly. But you shouldn't be as offended by it as is, because it's literally making the point that you're trying to make by getting it banned off of Netflix. You're stupid. Period. Solid movie. Not my favorite thing in the world. But I sat through it, got through it, and it wasn't all too bad. I give it a 3 out of 5. It's definitely something for the French to put out there. I'm not going to say I would assume an American studio would put something out there, but when I saw that this was French, I started laughing almost immediately that the U.S. people were pissed about this movie, because I already knew the whole story was going to go left. It's a French movie. The French do this all the time. Like, all the time. Stop watching French stuff then. It's just that simple. Like, there's an English dub, but just skip it. All right? If you are one of those parents, just skip it. It doesn't need to get kicked off to Netflix. It's just having a very adult conversation. And unfortunately, it's about the youth. That's it. Now, moving on from that, I watched something called Baywatch, which was supposed to be about, like, couples, parents watching how they are together in secret. I mean, you want to talk about people with weird fantasies. This seems like it was it. This was a really corny idea with an even cornier show. I got to give it a 2.5 out of 5. It had mild entertainment for maybe the first episode, and then the rest of it. It's just that it's very formulaic. I feel like if you liked episode 1, like really liked it and were enthused, you would enjoy the rest of the series. And if you didn't, then it's absolute nonsense. So I'm not going to tell you to watch it, but it may hit home for some. It's not really like most other dating shows, and for that, I have to give it some credit as well. But it is a really corny premise of, like, people's parents watching them, evaluating whether or not the relationship is healthier than they assume it is. And at the same time, who really cares what their parents think when it comes to a relationship? 9 out of 10 times, it's just, you know, either the parents have to pretend like they like your lover, or your lover has to pretend that they can get through the day with them. That's it. Move on. As long as you make each other happy, you make each other happy. It'll end of its own accord. And a lot of these couples ended up breaking up to get back together shortly after the show. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to deal with the bull crap. I watched a kids show, Miraculous Ladybug and Cat Noir. I gotta give it a 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed this series. It's originally, you know, a French cartoon that got an American dub and was on American TV even. And it actually is really fun. There's a mix between French and Chinese, you know, like history and myths, and it was pretty cool. It was a really fun ride. I would love to see more episodes pop up. And they touch on some pretty cool concepts, even like, you know, time traveling and different abilities and the stuff. It's one of the more diversely casted kids shows where there's a little bit, you know, there's a black person, there's an Arab person, there's a white people, there's Asian people. It was more diverse than you know, what France actually is. So I thought that this was pretty cool. Everybody's affluential too. I thought that was a dope concept, and it was a really fun ride. I think this is a good show for, you know, especially, you know, if you have a kid between 6 and like 12, they'll probably enjoy this best. So I would tell them to watch it. There is another movie that came out on Netflix that was a continuation, and it's called The Babysitter Killer Queen. If you watch the first Babysitter, there are a couple of YouTube celebs, a couple of familiar faces, and they are trying to kill someone to get all that they want in life from the devil. You know, they sold their souls, they're trying to get a reward. This movie continues about 2 years later, featuring the same little boy who survived that night, and kind of how things 2 years later are starting to repeat themselves, and how he has to try and survive yet again. It was a fun ride. It's a very corny, cheesy movie line, it's a good like B class horror movie, but more like a comedy horror. A lot of good kills, a lot of bad acting, and a lot of familiar faces. I gotta give it a 3.5 out of 5. I think you should definitely give this movie a watch, especially if you enjoyed The First Babysitter. If you didn't, it's more of the same. But I think you might find this one a little more entertaining. It felt kind of like Ash versus Evil at different points in time, and a lot of people love that as a cult classic. So just give it a shot. I think it's pretty good. The biggest series I watched though was Kingdom. Kingdom. I can't talk enough about how good this show was. The only thing about this show is that I feel like it's not for everyone. This is a very niche type of a show. It's a story of a family of MMA fighters in California and kind of the dysfunction that they live around and live with and cause. Like, you know, it features a Jonas brother turning gay. You know, it's one of these kind of these shows. I felt like Shameless at times because of all the dysfunction, but it's definitely its own story. A father kind of seeking to relive his glory days. A brother looking to, you know, be who's just a fighter. He wants to be the top of the top. There's an ex involved who was also a former champ that can bring glory to the gym. And the son was kind of coming to terms with who he is and what he is and you know, how it works into the industry he's chosen to work into. Well, you know, there are other gyms, bad promoters, other, you know, managers. It's a whole bunch of these dysfunctional stories put together into like a really good 3-season drama. I loved this show. But because I know it's not for everyone, I have to give it a 3.5 out of 5. I think you should give it a chance, though. I thought it was really fun, really gritty. It's a good drama, great fight scenes, actually really realistic, cage matches. And you might learn some stuff about about the industry if you're interested in ever becoming a cage fighter too. There's a lot taken from like real situations, so I do recommend that you watch it. Another movie that dropped is another sequel called The Debt Collector. Now, The Debt Collector, the first movie, features a familiar B action star and another old-timey actor kind of getting together and, you know, they're beating up people for money and going on a mission. They get screwed and they have to fix stuff. This movie takes place a bit after and kind of how everything that happened in the first movie is getting them into trouble yet again because they screwed over somebody whose brother just doesn't feel right about having his brother screwed over. So everything comes back to bite them in the butt. They go back and forth with each other like they do. It's a really grittier version of a 48 Hours, if you ask me. They are a very dysfunctional duo. They both kick a lot of butt. They get into a bunch of these situations and leads down to a really awesome final gun scene. I know it's a really corny movie, so I have to give it a 2.5 out of 5. But if you enjoyed the first Debt Collector, you will enjoy the second. It's really cheesy. It's really bad. Like this may be a C movie in all honesty, but I would say watch it if you like some corny jokes, good action, and a lot of random blood being splattered everywhere. Also, if you like all that, you might want to go see a therapist. Just fair warning. But another movie that dropped this week was Bill and Ted Part 3. I was very on the fence about watching it, to be honest with you. I feel like sometimes you watch the sequel to something so legendary and it just doesn't work. But I watched this movie and honestly a lot of the original Bill and Ted is in it. Even down to the ending. The ending was absolutely perfect. This movie had a really good soundtrack. It kept a lot of the classic stuff going on. They actually show how the characters have grown older, matured, and the story developed. I feel like it was a solid Part 3. I don't think it was the right timing for it. I think they should have did something like this in the 90s. This really did come out of nowhere, and I think it's not going to resonate with today's audience the way that it should. But for those of you who like the first two Bill and Teds, I say give it a shot. I give this a 3.5 out of 5. And now before we go, the last series I'm going to talk about is something that dropped on Hulu actually, and it's called Woke, and it's the story of a black cartoonist who is coming into his blackness. Now, I cannot tell you how much this hit home for me. Essentially, he's one of those black people who thinks that nothing bad is going to happen to him because he doesn't fit any of the stereotypes other than being 6 foot tall. But really, he just doesn't see it. You know, even in his cartoon work, he wants to be recognized as a cartoonist, not a black cartoonist, until he has a situation with the police, and it kind of all hits him in the face at once. And he is now woke to the situation. And he even admits it wasn't that he didn't know stuff was going on. He just never thought it would happen to him. A lot about this guy reminds me of myself as a child. Not even as an adult, but as a child. Where a lot of it doesn't hit you the same way because you're surrounded by people who don't treat you as such. You know, it's different when you're in a very racist area or, you know, from a place where you're told all these, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, they're bad, all the time. And I wasn't, you know, I was definitely made aware of history, made aware of things that are going on, but was often taught to not hold it against people. And so you come with this concept like, you know, just do the right thing, everything should be fine, yada yada. And the reality of the situation is you could try your best to do all the right that you can. It still will come to you at some point in time, and it can come to you at any point in time, you know? So he's hit with this realization, and it changes him as a person as well as an artist and a cartoonist, and how he tries to now mix his blackness with his creativity and all the the misgivings and bad things that kind of happen along the way, all the dysfunctional events that happen because of his newfound blackness. This show is a great comedy. This show hits on a lot of points. I absolutely love this show. If you are someone who likes Atlanta, if you are someone who likes what was that, Insecure, if you liked, you know, chewing gum, this definitely hits along all of those same lines of that awkward black person dealing with being black in their situation. It's so general and yet so specific at the same time, and I think that this particular cast and crew did a great job in telling the story. I can't wait for a season 2. My only complaint about the show and why I give it a 4 out of 5 is that it was too short. I wanted so much more. But the fact of the matter is, in order to create gold, sometimes you have to know you're going to get but so much out of, you know, your raw resources. So these guys literally took something beautiful, made it, and it's a great 8 episode watch. Give it a shot on Hulu. It's called Woke. All right. On that note, this has been another episode of Will's Review, and we will catch you guys next time.